So, good morning, Drew from the Delerium Trees.
Good morning to you, sir. How are you?
I am brilliant, thank you very much. And yourself?
I'm doing very well. It's nice and sunny here in Turriff, so I can't complain.
Good stuff. Is there much snow up there?
We had a lot of snow last weekend, and whereabouts in areas where I teach, about 15, 16 miles west from here, was about 2 feet of snow.
Right.
But in Turriff itself, being on the side of the hill, it kind of blows over the top of us, so we escaped relatively free.
Right. Because, I mean, yesterday, there was quite a lot of snow in Glasgow yesterday, but it's pretty much all gone this morning.
Nothing at all yesterday, so it was good.
So, interesting, you say that you're based in Turriff. So, how about the rest of the guys in the band? Are they all up in Aberdeenshire or?
The guys that play, well, Heater Alves, who does our sound and additional keyboards, he works at the ARC studios in Mintlaw. That's, if you know where Peterhead is, it's towards that direction. Wyatt Pauley, he's a bit of a problem at the moment. He lives in Texas. and Jack Fox, our normal guitarist, he's a brilliant guitarist. He lives in Aberdeen. Right. So, but we were hoping, obviously, last year Wyatt was starting an album at Abbey Road, and we were going to start our Storms in the Moon album down there as well. But obviously, with the COVID, it never really happened, which is a shame, but just the way it goes.
Yeah. So I suppose, like everybody else, involved in the music game, COVID has had a massive impact on you guys, not just least, being able to go out and perform, but the logistics of trying to do stuff just sort of over the internet, as it were.
Yeah, well, a lot. I am a music teacher and lecturer, so music is my job. It's my full-time job. So obviously a lot of teaching moved online, but I also drum. But if you're trying to teach a drummer online, it just sounds like you're teaching a herd of horses. Not so bad. I'm mainly a trumpet player. That's quite good. Piano, but you need to see people play, and online's okay for a little while, especially if they're pretty good. But if they're beginners or intermediate, you really need to see them face to face. But we battled on, and it's the same. I did a few Delerium Trees acoustics online to various radio stations. That was quite good, and we had intended doing a band thing when Wyatt was over, but obviously the COVID derailed that. And it's same. I played for brass bands as well. They were obviously hit by everything they couldn't play. I played at a couple of churches as well, so obviously that was stopped. So really, a lot of my income was taken straight away. But it's all back to normal now, so can't complain.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Back to near as normal.
Near normal,
certainly, obviously, from our point of view, we used to have a physical studio that we went into, and did the shows from. But obviously, that closed down right at the very beginning, and everything is now done online. And I'm kind of thinking going forward that the possibility of us having another physical studio at any time in the near future is pretty slim, because we've sort of mastered, doing it all sort of over the internet kind of thing. But how did you guys then sort of meet, since you're kind of like spread out a wee bit, as they say?
Yeah, well, the only original member in the band is me. And I played for a band called Perfect Stranger, who did reasonably well for a while. We supported the Simple Minds, Nazareth, etc. And but we split, and I kind of become quite seriously ill for a while, and then I kind of come out of that place, and I met a guy called George Cameron, who had actually sacked from Perfect Stranger, and both of us had suffered, let's face it, depression and stuff like that. So we called ourselves the DTs, or the Delerium Trees, Delerium Tremens, and we kicked it off from there. We were originally a 5-piece band, and we did a few live things, but when it came to recording, there was too many cooks in making the broth type thing, and I was the main songwriter, main composer as well. So it was far. This is going to sound very harsh. It was far easier to get rid of him, and then which they were nice guys, nothing wrong. But there's a big difference to doing music as a hobby and a big is doing music as I was as my job. And sometimes my hours are very bizarre. So people normally work from 9 to 5, and it's very hard to sometimes make them meet. I still get on with them, but you meet people who are like-minded, and I kept the name so because it was a good name, and then gradually we got around to really recording. Steve Barker come in and joined Paul Anderson, but these guys work kind of prohibited him as well. But we managed to get the first album out, Paradise Will Be, which was okay. But they two left, but Jack Fox came in, so we did Swim with the Ghost Angels, which he was brilliant in. I did the COVID kicked in, so I did a mini album called Underneath This Sun, which did very well for us. It won Best International Singer-Songwriters Association album. And then I did 3 more Christmas songs, which are recorded here as well. I've got a studio, and I'm speaking to you just now, is here. Then we take the stuff up to Mental, like I mentioned earlier, to Heater, and he remixes and makes it nice, I hope. And then I love climbing hills and looking for prehistory, so I often head to the Western Isles. So I recorded an instrumental album called Tales from the Western Isles, and then hard on the heels of that, I recorded, along with Jack and Wyatt and Heater, the double album Storms on the Moon. So we've been kept busy.
Yeah, and do you know, I must admit, I've listened to all of the albums, but my own personal favourite is Storms on the Moon. I just fell in love with it. As soon as I started to listen to it, it was just like, it was one, how you get those situations when you hear music and it just grips you.
Yeah.
And that's just basically how I felt, when I listened to it. I just couldn't, the very first opening bars right through to the last track, I just couldn't put it down, as they say.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
And obviously we've kind of communicated a little bit over Twitter, and we had talked a while back about, setting something like this up, and all sorts of stuff, as happens, kind of got in the way, and it fell by the wayside. But I'm really glad that I've managed to kind of pin that.
I'm glad you like Storms on the Moon. It's no secret I support the Green politics, and especially a Scottish party. I can easily mention that in this station, the SGP, who I wholly support. And it is basically a song about we've dumped enough rubbish in our own planet, so why would dump it in space? So so that's basically what it's about.
Yeah.
And it's one of the lines in the verse is, I can't understand why people just can't get along. Well, goodness me, that's very appropriate at the moment.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. So with things kind of returning back to some sort of normality, as it were, is there any likelihood of you guys getting out to gig anytime soon over this next year?
Well, we certainly are planning. Wyatt's certainly planning on coming over towards October, which could be very handy because we might have another album coming out, which it won't be the full-blown stadium-y type sound we sometimes do. It'll be more acoustic, jazzy, folky maybe, because I just accidentally found 14 songs I forgot I'd written, and they were all kind of jazzy folk, which I write music to a score. And that's probably because it's my job as well. And I forgot about that. So we'll have a look at them and we'll see what we can do. So if he's coming over, he'll be on it. So will Jack, and Peter will be doing additional stuff. I'll bring in a drummer as well. Then hopefully we will get out to do some stuff. But once again, things could go pear-shaped. Don't know, but hopefully it'll keep on going.
Yeah.
And hopefully more bands will get out playing live. I think I'm going to see Simple Minds in April. That'll be the first one for a while. The last one was public service broadcasting in Aberdeen. So hopefully, if the bigger boys are coming out playing live, hopefully us littler people will get out to play live as well.
Well, I was kind of fortunate last year. And again, this is one of those things I had completely forgot I'd done this. Go Radio were running a competition to win tickets for the party in the park up at Root and Glen. I had entered and, as I say, completely forgot all about it. And then I got this email saying that I'd won these 2 tickets. And of course, I'm quite suspicious when I get emails from places that I don't really recognise. And I thought, oh, this is some sort of con, but it turned out it wasn't. So that was the first I had been to see any live music in a long time, because prior to the whole COVID thing, I used to spend a lot of time on the weekends, Friday nights, Saturday nights, admittedly going to pubs and seeing, bands that are just kind of trying to get there, as opposed to going to pubs and seeing, more well-established artists. And that was one of the things that I really missed because of the whole lockdown thing. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, getting back to that sort of idea again. And my next proper, if you like, gig in that sense is in May at Oranmore in Glasgow.
A
husband and wife duo called When Rivers Meet, a blues rock outfit. I've played on the show quite a few times, so I'm looking forward to getting along to see them and having a chat with them and stuff like that.
They are very good, and now I've certainly heard of them.
Aye. So with a lot of the songs that I've listened to, obviously that you guys have done, you do kind of mix it up a little bit, don't you? In terms of the type of music that you play and the songs that you do.
Yeah, we do. We've tried to get as much influences in as we can. If you go to the tales from the Western Isles, we've got Baroque music coming in. I wrote a medieval hymn, which was then pushed forward a couple of hundred years to meet Bach. And so we put that out. The title track of that, St Kilda, is almost a mini symphony. Tea at Balshar is almost a waltz. You've got a jig coming in, we down the Bray into Uig. But if you go, say, the first album, Paradise Will Be, is quite stadium-y, but it has slower moments. Swim with the Ghost Angels, we decided to go for some instrumentals because basically people asked for them, so they got what they asked for. But we did it. But the big thing is, what gives us a change is I'm a trumpet player, and we do put in a lot of brass, and it's quite good. Plus the fact I play for a brass band, I can pull in other brass players. So we've got an automatic brass section. So if you notice, like Storms and the Moons, the actual track, it's got a trumpet solo. Then it's got four-part brass section, kind of towards the end of it as well. And tracks like Don't Judge Me on the Storms album, we've got huge trumpet solos.
Yeah. So, I must admit, I enjoy brass music coming in to be honest, pretty much any instrument really coming into stuff, especially when you're perhaps not expecting it, I don't know if you've heard of the Glasgow outfit, Colonel Mustard and the Dijon. And obviously they do a lot of brass stuff, and again, I've interviewed them, a couple of them, and it's just brilliant, that these things are coming in. So would you say it's important that if it's possible for artists to do so, they should maybe stretch themselves by trying different things, and experimenting?
Definitely try one of the different types of music. One of the tracks on Storms and the Moon was Keep Alive, just an acoustic version. Heater was in the studios and he switched it on button. Naughty man. So I started playing a while. I started singing Keep Alive, which is an old song. It's normally quite fast, lots of drums and lots of guitars thrashing about. But so we recorded, it was almost like a mini jazz version with a kind of half decent piano solo. And so he let me hear it and said, why don't we just leave it in?
Yeah.
And it's part of the sessions. So, but I think everybody should be trying different things, because if you do it, your music will go stale. If it works, can even your big boys do it? Can their Simple Minds the other day doing something with an orchestra on a national radio station? So they're not scared to do it. Everybody should do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a very eclectic musical taste, you know. And I just love music, you know. Obviously, you listen to things, and I would never say it's rubbish, you know, because somebody's put their heart and soul into that. You know, it might not be very good, but I would never ever say it's rubbish. But I can appreciate, you know, the work that goes on behind it. Um, do you find that your audience, if you like, so the people that kind of follow the Delerium Tree, uh, do they appreciate the fact that you experiment, if you like, and change style? So,
I think certainly the people up here and in Canada where we do quite well, they would expect lots of different types of music coming in. They would expect oddball instrumentals to be appearing. They probably didn't expect an album of them, but they got that, and there will be a second instrumental album at some point once I visit enough islands again. And but we'll get two more this year anyway. But I think it's important. They know there's going to be a certain, let's say, politics to the idea, and there'll be various other topics which I write about. Mental health issues is one, and obviously a happy home life is a nice thing to write about as well. So you're going to get the oddball optimistic tune. You're going to get quite a bit of politics bunged in, and you'll get serious issues, mental health, various other health things. They're probably things that relate to me, but obviously they relate to loads and loads of other people as well. Okay, and it doesn't need to be something that I had happened to me, but that will happen in a different version to loads of people. Okay, and so it's so just try and bring everything in.
Yeah, I think sometimes, you know, people tend to think quite insularly that they, you know, whatever the problem is that they're having, it's only them that have it. You know, they maybe don't appreciate or realise that there are so many other people in the same boat, as they say. And that's one of the reasons I think, you know, music is such a great thing for people with any kind of health issue, you know, especially people who, you know, suffer from things like depression and stuff like that. I think music is a great vehicle. And I'm always kind of on the lookout, if you like, or shouldn't you really say look out, listen out, I suppose is probably a better way of putting it, for anybody that's kind of dabbling in those areas, you know?
Moon on the Tide on the Storms album is all about that. There's several tracks on that album. Kind of Future Days is another one. The lyrics are pretty bleak, even for me.
Yeah.
But it's an issue. It's just my tuppence worth on the issue, and it's just, because Black Failure is another one. When I was 36, I was in hospital for quite a long time. No, basically what you do is curled up in a heap in a blanket, Ken. So it's like, when am I going to get out of here type thing? But obviously I escaped. But yeah, that's what I would think most songwriters or singer-songwriters, musicians would sing or play about. Ken, it's you've got a world view, you've got your own view, which relates to yourself, and whatever happens to me obviously happens to thousands, millions of other people as well. So.
And another thing that I find quite interesting as well is people who perform, but they also work in an inverted commas day job. Is that quite difficult to juggle? Or, you know, have you got so good at your time management, as it were, that, you know, really impinge?
I'm quite happy. My day job is music.
Yeah.
So they can intermingle quite a lot. So it's since I'm self-employed, I teach a lot of adult pupils. I do a lot of writing for stuff, live performances here and there, whether it be even playing at people's funerals or weddings or whatever. My time is mine, and I've got a lot of pupils, but I can, fortunately, they're quite bendy with their timings. Yeah. So I could get off it. If you're working 9 to 5, so you've got your set time. So if you're going to give yourself a couple of hours, the big problem for indie bands is social media. What a time that takes up.
Yeah.
And I know the trees are pretty heavy. We promote every show we're on, and I'm lucky as some people do stuff for us or never get it done at all. So
yeah, no, I completely get that. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I don't really use Facebook. So most of the stuff I put out is on Twitter. And I find that I spend probably as much time tweeting about my own things that as I do retweeting or tweeting about other people, so I'll often, something will come up on my feed, and I'll think, oh, that's brilliant, I'll need to get that out. And that's the whole good part of it, I think, is that kind of community spirit of, passing on, the good news, if you like. If somebody puts a tweet up and says, oh, we've got a new album releasing tomorrow, all right, let's get that out there and let people know about it. And I think from a musical standpoint, certainly through the whole COVID thing as well, the music community on Twitter has really blossomed. I don't know if you've found that.
Yeah, we've always been heavy on Twitter. We're heavy on Facebook as well, to be fair. I think on Facebook, it's more for people that kind of really like us will come and visit us there, which is fine. And like we'll promote your show on Facebook and on our website as well, obviously. And the Twitter thing is much more faster. Can like, retweet, and it's well, I would quibble a wee bit about Twitter is I wish people would spend a wee bit more time, have a look at what they're retweeting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it is a very handy tool. And it is amazing how people come together, certainly in the music scene, probably same in sports or art or whatever, and kind of pull together because we're basically all in the same boat. And if we don't help each other out, the boat will sink. So,
I mean, I must admit, I've really benefited from the community on Twitter throughout the whole lockdown, because there are people that, I've dealt with, and then obviously they've tweeted on to like their followers, and I've had their followers contacting me and asking, could I put their music on the radio and stuff like that, and literally from the four corners of the world, and I suppose that's the great thing, about it being an internet-based station. You just don't know who's listening to it, and where in the world they might be, I mean, I get stuff from like Singapore, the US, and all over Europe. I've had people in Australia, South Africa, literally getting in touch with me, and it's great, I'll be honest, there are sometimes things come through that don't make it, but that's just how it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just the way it goes. I suppose you can't play everything, and if it arrives too late or possibly you don't like it, then once again that's just the way it goes.
Yeah. Well, in general, the shows are all sorted the day before they're due to go out. So generally speaking, if somebody sent me an email today with a new release, the chances are it wouldn't make the show tomorrow unless I could manage to squeeze it in. If it was that good, and I might think to myself, well, do you know what? I played these people quite a lot over the last few weeks. I can afford to let them drop this week, and put this in because it's really, really good, So, things like that do happen. But generally speaking, the show's all set the day before it's due to go out. And of course, it is done live as well, so which is another thing.
I listen to your show. I listen to your show because I drive about on a Saturday morning to people's, but last Saturday, for some reason, I had a couple of call-offs because they caught the COVID bug. And so I had a morning at home, or almost a whole morning at home. So I listened to Annie Lennox.
Yeah.
That was, and you played free. Catherine Polworth, I think, was one of them.
Yeah.
And absolutely tremendous.
Yeah.
Obviously not the only station to play it, but you got such a huge variety of the indie stuff, and then Annie Lennox, etc., etc. I think June Phillips was another one you played.
Yeah.
It was absolutely tremendous.
For me, it's very important to put as much into the show as possible and as many different styles and genres as possible. I think there's a lot of people do radio programs, and it'll be pop, it'll be rock, it'll be folk, it'll be country. Whereas I try to put a wee bit of everything in, because and see, to be honest, it's a bit of an ego thing for me as well, because I just love it.
An eclectic mix.
Sometimes I'm sitting and I'm doing the show, and I think to myself, I don't really care, whether this or not. It's my show, therefore it's getting played. I mean, like, I had a track on last Saturday. I don't know if you caught it. It was towards the end of the show, from an absolutely brilliant guitarist, Mike DeVelta.
Oh, I did hear that. Right?
And again, I had completely forgotten about him, and it was one of the regular listeners to the show a few weeks ago had sent me an email about him, and in the middle of last week I was putting the show together, and I was looking for something else in my emails, and I came across this one, and I thought, oh, do you know what? I'd been meaning to put this guy in. Let me get something up for him, and that often happens, because I get so much correspondence, that I can't always get it all in. And 3 hours, a lot of people would probably think, doing a radio program or any kind of program for 3 hours, it's a long time. But in actual fact, it's not, and there's a lot of stuff that I could put in that, I could probably be on 24/7 if I was capable of doing that, the amount of stuff that I could put out.
I was going to say, you could put on Tales from the Western Hills. I'll fill up one show.
And obviously, I like to try, and wherever possible, I like to try and promote, Scottish artists, because that is one of the policies that we have. We try to have our output roughly about 50% Scottish. For quite a long time, we weren't getting anywhere near that. But we made some changes, and we started to kind of get there. And it's something that we're all quite keen, to kind of keep that part of it going, whatever possible. So we're almost out of time, but just very, very briefly, and I ask this quite a lot of people, looking forward and taking into consideration all the things that have happened fairly recently, how would you like to see the world progressing in the next couple of years?
I like to go political.
Whatever you like on this, man. I don't really bother.
Well, I'd love to see another independence referendum and the result go the right way. Yeah. And we get independence. Obviously, the situation, I hope, in Ukraine gets sorted out and they get their country back. And that's for music and bands, whatever, brass bands, rock bands, jazz bands. Hopefully, they all get back to playing, because even they all need to either be earning money, or, as the Silver Band's case, they get played at a gala or a fete or whatever. I know it's a Queen's Jubilee thing coming up, but a Silver Band is playing at 4 or 5 things because of that, and that's money coming in, whether you agree with it or not. To me, it doesn't really matter. The fact is, the band's getting out and playing, and people get to see them, and that is good. And hopefully, the Trees, hopefully around about October, suddenly come out and blast everybody's ears.
Listen, I am looking forward to the opportunity of getting to see you guys live, because having listened to all the recorded stuff, I might be wrong, but I've got this picture, this image in my head of what you guys are going to be like on stage, and I think it's pretty wild, if I'm being honest.
Well, I think they'll probably cage me in by surrounding me with keyboards and brass instruments. So there's not much movement to me, just like that. But why it can be a bit mental at times.
That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. Well, listen, Drew, thanks very much for taking the time to chat to me today. Listen, thanks again. It's been really great seeing you and chatting with you.
Great to speak to you as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.